We are sitting in a critical moment for the market. Bitcoin has lost a major higher low structure it was building on the 2-week time frame. On the daily, we are seeing a potential momentum shift, and on the 4-hour time frame, Bitcoin is signaling potential downside pressure. At the same time, we are sitting in multiple trades. We have ETH that is active, SPX that is consolidating inside a powerful order block, and we also have Pump, which is approaching a level that could trigger a sharp reaction. This isn't random price action. This is compression, and compression typically leads to expansion. The only question is, are we going to get expansion to the upside, or are we going to see expansion to the downside first? This is Bitcoin on Point, where I navigate the market in real time and emotion free. In today's video, I'm going to show you why Bitcoin looks bearish on higher time frames, why 60K is the most important level inside the weekly order block for Bitcoin to defend, and how the lower time frame breakdown could pull price back down into key demand. Plus, I will also break down all of our trades and what I'm looking for next. Do stay tuned. If this is something you want to listen to, none of the noise, we're cutting all of that out. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Now, as always, let's look at our macro context before we dive into the charts, because Tom Lee has just said live on CNBC that the Bitcoin bottom is in. And this is a fantastic buying opportunity. Now, when traditional finance analysts start calling Bitcoin bottoms publicly, this ultimately signals that sentiment is shifting, right? Now, next up, we have President Trump, who is considering to wipe out $35 trillion in national debt with Bitcoin. A little crypto check, just a bit of Bitcoin, and it's done. Look, whether symbolic or strategic, yeah, the fact is, the conversation is happening at president level, right? So it's not always about the numbers, but the fact that even that Donald Trump is even suggesting something like this is huge. Now, Jim Cramer believes that the US government has bought Bitcoin at 60K. And if this is true, it kind of means that 60K, as we've been analyzing on the weekly bullish order block, isn't just technical support. It's actually strategic positioning. So we've got presidential conversations, institutional endorsements, and government level speculation. This is Bitcoin moving into the center of global finance, guys. It's not just about a chart anymore. The picture couldn't be any more clear. Now, let's dive back into the structure, and we're going to look at Bitcoin on the 2-week time frame, because we are replicating a potential bearish scenario here, right? The potential start of a bear market. Now, nothing is confirmed, but just like we did in the past, if we look back to 2021 and we actually started breaking down in 2022, Bitcoin was building this sort of higher low structure after a double top, and once it actually lost the trend line of support on the higher lows, this is where it entered into its bear market. Now, fast forward to sort of 2026, in fact, when we actually started to lose the trend line here, right, where we've been building these higher lows. We had a replicated double top. We lost that support in January, and right now we are in risky waters. So the fact that we've broken down with these two full body candles tells us that sellers were aggressive, right? This wasn't just liquidity building here. This was actually pressure on the market. It was pressure on Bitcoin. Now, the main thing to take away, does this mean that it's a full-on bear market? Not yet. There are still levels, i.e. the 60 to 50K region, that could be defended for Bitcoin here, right? If Bitcoin can come back down into this order block, which we will discuss on the weekly in a second, and actually mark a low in this territory, this could signal the expansion for a mini bear market potentially, which could have ended before really pushing back to new all-time highs. Now, again, this 60K order block, it resorts back to 2024. We had a major correction at this point, and it looked like it was all over and the Bitcoin had tapped out, but it led to new all-time highs. So this still could be a potential tap back into this liquidity pocket before major expansion. However, if we do stoop below that, then that's when the risky waters begin. Now, moving on to Bitcoin on the daily time frame. Again, we have the weekly order bullish order block down here. Sorry, we've just zoomed into Bitcoin on the daily to analyze, and we've been looking at this chart for several days. And I've stated many times that Bitcoin, whenever it comes up to sort of 72k, 71k, which it did a few days ago, it always marks a decisive moment. Because this is the price that, since we actually lost support and rallied back into 72k in early February, the Bitcoin actually needs to reclaim in order to start potentially moving towards a market structure shift at 80k. So at this moment in time, we are seeing a potential momentum shift, right? Because we are rejecting from this level on several occasions, 71, 72k. Now, if Bitcoin does come back down and essentially lose this black trend line of support that it's holding and confirm it as resistance, this is where the potential arrives to actually tap back down into the weekly bullish order block, which is that 60 to 61k region, again, which is what we've been analyzing on the 2-week time frame here, right? A survival net, basically, right? Where you could sweep into this pocket and then look for the expansion. So we do have the momentum shift on the daily that's also representing that rollover back into the order block. And if we do get that, that could provide an opportunity where buyers are going to step back in, because there is historic memory in this level from 2024. Now, a quick note before the 4-hour time frame. All my trades are tracked transparently on Profits Precision. That's every entry, every exit, and every adjustment. All my updates, however, happen live inside my Telegram. So YouTube is where I initially break down the structure, and Telegram is where all of the execution happens in real time. The links are in the description. Now, moving on to Bitcoin on the 4-hour time frame, I did mark 2 previous scenarios that were looking to be unfolding, where we could tap up above 72k and rally up to that 80k, which is the market structure shift that we was looking at on the daily time frame. However, the key levels, or the scenario, that did unfold looks like it's going to be a rotation, back down into the weekly order block. And there are 2 major levels, again, as we discussed, that need to be broken to see any real sign of bullish trend flips here, right? On the larger time frames. On the 4-hour, 72k is a major level which we need to break above. This is where it would become bullish in the short term if we close above it, and 80k roughly remains that key level where we do have a supply zone that needs to be reclaimed, and that would mark a structure shift if we do get that breakthrough, right? However, Bitcoin at the moment on the 4-hour does have this ascending level of support, and it is respecting this. In fact, we've been sitting on it since yesterday. And at the moment, it's looking to make a decision, right? So again, there is some sort of weakness. We have got these lower highs here. And if we do lose the trend line, then I'm looking for a dip back down into the weekly bullish order block, right? And that ties up with what we was looking at on the daily, losing the trend line, yeah? So it all ties together. But if we do hold support, then this is where running back up to 72k is a possibility, right? So we're watching here, yeah? We're waiting for a reaction necessarily on Bitcoin. So essentially, if it does rotate cleanly, right, if we do get the rollover, then this is where major demand for Bitcoin would step in. And that's where we could then see the push to 72k. Now, with Bitcoin wrapped up, let's dive into Ethereum and start analyzing our trades. And in this trade update, at this moment in time, Ethereum, similar to Bitcoin on the 4-hour, is sitting on this major level of ascending support. And we did map out yesterday that we could be looking for a rally into resistance, roughly 2.1k, before coming back down to this support level. So we are at risk at the moment because we are sitting on this lifeline. If we do lose it, then we simply rotate back down into ETH's weekly order block, which sits roughly at 1.8k. It wouldn't look too tasty for the trade, because if we do come down and sort of lose 1.8k, then that triggers our first stop entry, right? But even if that happens, it's fine. You know, we can't win everything, and our risk is controlled, right? I stated in several videos, we've only deployed 1% of our capital, so it's no biggie. Ideally, however, I would like to see strength resolve here and actually rally and create this formation so we can obviously execute the trade. But again, nonetheless, guys, it happens sometimes. We adjust, we move on. And with that being said, we're going to look at SPX, because SPX came back into the order block, right? And this is exactly what we wanted to see. This is what provided the opportunity to get into this long. So right now, what's actually going on is a period of consolidation. You can see that it's sort of ranging at the moment, and it's ranging just above its order block. So we might actually see a potential sweep back into it, right? Which, again, I wouldn't worry too much because that's where I would expect demand to step in and a potential higher low to build. Remember, we did have a level of resistance that we broke out of, and this is why returning back into this order block is how we got the entry. But if we do get the sweep into it, right, and we do start rolling over here, then again, we do have an ascending level of support, which does tie up roughly with the order block, which we could see a retest back on before actually going for that expansion. So as long as this higher low structure builds, SPX is looking great. And this is probably one of the best areas to actually enter on this trade. Now let's dive into our third and final trade, and this is pump, and we actually haven't got an execution on this trade yet, right? But it's doing kind of what we wanted it to do. Before we was I think we was analyzing roughly on Friday, and we was looking for an entry. At first we wanted price to come back into our entry point so we can execute the trade, but instead it did actually rally up and start pushing towards or just above, sorry, our TP1, right? So price did get a rally above TP1, and we didn't actually get to fulfill our position. However, we are starting to see lower highs form here, and if we do get the entry and the retracement back down into 0.002, this is where we're looking to execute. And again, similar to what we've been analyzing in regards to higher low structure here for the other trades, if pump, I was about to say SPX, if pump does come back down towards this is why our entry is also looking very clean. It ties up with this ascending level of support, ran up to resistance, came back to support, resistance, support, lower high, come back into support, go for another attempt. And this is what we're looking for, right? If we go for that other attempt, this is where we can get our TPs hit and actually successfully execute this trade. So if we do get that bounce, that's where things are looking great. So it's not necessarily gambling, right? This is structured execution across all of our trades, guys. We're monitoring key structural levels, and we're waiting for the reactions before we make the entry. So the next few moves on all of our trades could create very clean entries and continuation for our long. So a breakdown today, a summary on our structure. The 2-week is signaling broken higher low structure, and pressure is in fact increasing. The daily signals that sellers are stepping in pretty early, and we are looking at a potential momentum shift back down into the weekly order block roughly at 60k. The 4-hour time frame is also signaling selling pressure, and if we lose this ascending level of support, this is where we could dip back down into the weekly bullish order block. ETH is active and waiting for the continuation. SPX is looking to release back down into its order block to actually mark a perfect entry spot, we hope. And pump is also guiding us for the execution. Now, if you've enjoyed all of today's updates, please make sure to check out Profit's Precision platform. It's where I monitor all of my trades in real time. Again, remember, Telegram is for the execution. I share all of the entries, all of the exits, everything here, and it's all monitored on Profit's Precision, guys. It's all allocated in one ecosystem. So make sure you tap in. The links are in the description, and I'll see you in the next update.